From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. We start in the Caribbean, where Antigua and Barbuda and Grenada are voting in a referendum to decide if the Caribbean Court of Justice should be their final appeal court instead of the Colonial Area Privy Council. There has been a low voter turnout in Antigua and Barbuda so far. Some say they were not aware of the schedule of the voting. Experts have argued that the Privy Council is the last vestige of colonialism in the region and as such should be removed. The vote holds significant meaning as it has the potential to change the way in which Caribbean people actively engage in regional integration and self-determination. The CCG was established in 2003. To date, only Dominica, Guyana, Belize, and Barbados have adopted the Trinidad-based court as their final court of appeal.
Well, you just answered.
Our correspondent in Port of Spain, Kijan Haynes, has more on this background.
By Wednesday, the 7 CCJ judges may have a lot more work on their hands. If Antigua and Barbuda and Grenada sign on to the CCJ, they join Barbados, Belize, Dominica, and Guyana as countries in the CCJ's jurisdiction as final appellate court. For many, having Caribbean judges serving as the ultimate arbiters is the final step toward true independence and full regional integration. Adopting the CCJ would replace the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council based in London, an obscure court which many feel is too far removed from the Caribbean and Caribbean issues and too reminiscent of the colonial past. Switching to the CCJ is also less costly and matters can be heard faster than the Privy Council.
Everything is all set for the court to become as accepted as, for example, the University of the West Indies, or the Caribbean Development Bank, or the Caribbean Examinations Council. All Caribbean institutions run by Caribbean nationals working to promote the ethos and goals of a proud Caribbean people.
But it's that distance, literal and figurative, that keeps many in the Caribbean from adopting the regional appellate court. Many people don't trust Caribbean judges, fearing they can be easily corrupted, despite countless measures to ensure that they aren't. Also, there have been no accusations of corruption in the court's 18-year history.
Already no one ever do anything wrong. My mother got to write quite the queen. So let we remain there still. Acknowledge of the queen, the previous council. But we are ready for the CCJ yet.
I know of it, I know the CCJ and what it means to us as a people. But if we decide to go off away from the queen, we have to go off from the queen and off from Babylon entirely.
It's been a long road to get here. The first proposal for a Caribbean Court of Appeal was tabled back in 1970. It wasn't until 2001 the first agreement to establish the Caribbean Court was signed by 10 states. 2 more countries signed on a few years later, bringing the number to 12.
Since 2005, the CCJ has been housed in this building in Port of Spain. Now, the government of Trinidad and Tobago has made no real steps to implement the CCJ as their final court of appeal. In one debate many years ago, the opposition said that there must be a referendum before that can happen. But there are only 2 countries which absolutely must have a referendum to implement the CCJ. That's Antigua and Barbuda and Grenada.
And in the United States, people are voting across the country in midterm elections for thousands of public officials, from members of Congress to town councilors. Control of Congress and 36 governor offices are up for grabs in an election seen as a referendum on President Donald Trump's administration. Opinion polls favor Democrats to pick up the minimum of 23 seats they need to capture a majority in the House of Representatives. But Republicans are favored to retain their majority in the Senate. Trump continued campaigning for Republicans by attacking Central American migrants. During a rally in Indiana the night before the election, the U.S. president said Democrats encourage millions of illegal aliens to break our laws, violate our borders, and overrun our country. He insisted on linking migration to crime and drugs. Fears over migration has been a key tool for the Republican campaign.
America great again. If you want more caravans, if you want more crime, vote Democrat tomorrow. If you want strong borders, you see what we're doing? We got the worst laws because they won't give us the votes. If you want strong borders and safe communities, no drugs, no caravans, vote Republican. All right, get them out of here, please. Get them out. 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 Go home to mommy.
Our correspondent in New York, Karina Cartagena, tells us more.
Today is midterm elections. Democrats hope for House win and Republicans look to hold the Senate, but nobody is quite sure. With heated campaigns concluding across the country, the results could provide a vision for the future of both parties. Few hours before midterms and without evidence, President Donald Trump warned of voter fraud in these elections. In a tweet early Monday, Donald Trump said that law enforcement has been strongly notified to watch for illegal voting. In remarks to reporters on his way to a campaign rally in Cleveland, President Donald Trump also falsely claimed that voter fraud is commonplace. Organizations consider it important to go out and vote. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
We thank Karina for that report. New York is one of the states with the biggest presence of Latinos. The electoral race between Republicans and Democrats is tight, but the outcome is vital for the immigrant community.
New York will elect its governor, state prosecutor, and assembly, and Senate representatives. New Yorkers have their eyes set on the high chamber of the state because, depending on the results, the balance could keep in favor of Republicans or change to Democrats.
I want to see it changed. I want to see it checked. I don't approve of what it's doing. So, I don't think my voice is being represented.
If we don't participate, who we gonna have in office? Then we got to do some research and find out who we want. Right? That's the main goal. Find out if this guy or female is gonna help us, help our neighborhood. Because my neighborhood, I'm from Brownsville. My neighborhood is bad.
If Democrats win the high chamber, new law projects are expected, such as granting driver's license for illegal immigrants.
We are migrants, and if a party other than the Democrat Party wins, we will be affected.
Because of the immigration, because before, if you don't have any problem when you come to this country, you're free, everything's good. But today, it's like even you're good, but you're no guarantee.
Apart from the migration issues, other national topics concern the New Yorkers.
It's absolutely critical to investigate the president and his administration. It's critical to stop all of this hateful speech getting turned into hateful policy.
Democrats and Republicans have to unite as well and become a little more stronger in their decisions as to what people really need as far as health. Insurance needs to be made, a lot of changes in the insurance structure.
Amidst rejection for federal projects regarding migrants, some new faces appeared in the Democratic Party, like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, Catalina Cruz, Julia Salazar, Karines Reyes, and Jessica Ramos, all of them with Hispanic roots. If Ocasio-Cortez, a 28-year-old socialist Puerto Rican woman, wins the election, she will become the youngest woman ever in the U.S. Congress.
We can do it now. It doesn't take 100 years to do this.
12 million New Yorkers are able to vote on November 6. Authorities in the city launched initiatives to help non-native English-speaking voters, according to official data. Almost 40% of New Yorkers' residents are born abroad. These are only state and federal elections, but the ballots will include 3 questions that change the municipal constitution. The first has to do with the financing of political campaigns. The second investigates the creation of a citizen participation commission. And the third introduces limits for public charges of the communitary groups.
And now let's go live to Arlington in Virginia and speak to Greg Wilpert, a journalist at The Real News, about these midterm elections. Hi, Greg. Thank you for joining us. Everyone is saying these elections are a referendum on the Trump administration. What do you think they will tell us about attitudes to Trump?
Yes, I think it's definitely a referendum on Trump because the country is very polarized. People have very strong opinions about Trump one way or the other. And it's one of the reasons, of course, that this election cycle, there's expectation that it will be the highest turnout of any midterm elections probably ever. Usually turnout is very low, in maybe between 30 and 40%. This time it could get even above 40%. And that's basically testimony to the fact that this is such an important, or such a, that Trump is basically on the ballot.
Greg, the president has put immigration at the center of the campaign with repeated attacks on the Mayan caravan in Mexico. How much effect has that had?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, I think one of the reasons that Trump has emphasized the immigration issue is because he's trying to turn out his own supporters. It's obviously not going to affect those who are on the edge or critical of Trump. So it's really a way of mobilizing the most committed Trump supporters, and it certainly, I think, is having that desired effect. But the vast majority, I think, of U.S. citizens don't see immigration as being a central issue in this campaign. Rather, the economy, declining incomes, increasing debt burden, those kinds of things are actually much more important to most people, but it's not something that obviously that Trump wants to talk about. Of course, he talks about low unemployment rates every once in a while, but he even knows that, I think that he would know that those kinds of economic issues, even though they look relatively favorable for him, aren't really reaching the people because the jobs aren't that great that have been created. So immigration is really the thing that he needs to emphasize in order to turn out his own diehard supporters.
Greg, one last question for you. For maybe the first time, we see in these elections a whole group of candidates who openly identify as socialist. For example, in New York, what chances do they have and what impact could they have if elected?
Well, many of them actually have very good chances, and it's really kind of crazy because the mainstream of the Democratic Party is not supporting them. And but despite this lack of support from the Democratic Party, that is, in terms of supporting their campaign financially, they actually have a chance. And there's some very interesting states races going on, for example, in Pennsylvania, in California, Iowa, and as you mentioned, New York, that we need to pay attention to. And if they do win, it could really signify a shift of the Democratic Party towards the left. As I said, it's hard to say. All of these races are basically, according to the opinion polls, toss-up races at the moment. So we'll have to see this evening as to how they turn out. But if they turn out positively, it could be a major shift in the political direction of the United States.
Greg, we thank you for your time and for your input. We have been speaking with Greg Wilpert. He's a journalist at The Real News. And with that, we'll take a short break now. Don't go away.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Meanwhile, migrants continue to arrive in Mexico City after they left the Honduran city of San Pedro Sula 4 weeks ago. They are still over 800 kilometers away from the closest border crossings near Texas. Thousands of U.S. troops are awaiting their arrival at the Mexican border. And a few of those waiting in Puebla have hopped on the back of a container trucks. Although they are cramped, they say this will help them reach their destination faster.
Well, the truth is it's very difficult. We're only going to arrive to the U.S. carried by the hand of God. If God wishes, we'll get in there. But in the name of God, I believe we'll all get in. But yes, it's difficult. They say that Donald Trump has the whole army at the border, and they're saying that if we try to cross, they'll open fire. The caravan left the city of Córdoba in the state of Veracruz towards Mexico City. The migrants started walking at 5 a.m. just like the caravan assembly agreed on. The migrants walked to a highway that crosses 3 states and that heads to the capital. Some boarded some vehicles to move faster.
I am a little tired, but every day we move closer is a day we have to thank God for.
Others walked to avoid the cramped trucks. The caravan traveled 230 kilometers to reach its next destination. Near the toll collection booths, the federal police helped some migrants hop on some cars. Once in Mexico City, they walked to a shelter in the municipality of Iztacalco.
We need water and baby supplies. Also, I would ask people to help with food and milk, especially for the younger ones. We have nothing to take care of babies.
After 18 days, the migrant caravan has traveled for 1,180 kilometers on their way to the border with the United States.
The presidents of Honduras and Guatemala have met in Honduras' capital, Tegucigalpa, to discuss the migrant caravan that have left Central America and are heading towards the United States. They say they are working in the creation of a plan to offer opportunities to citizens so they don't have to migrate. Both Juan Orlando Hernandez and Jimmy Morales say migrants have been deceived. They have also warned the caravan's promoters they will be held responsible.
The organizers promise our countrymen that they'll receive money, food, transport during their entire trip, and they even encourage them to participate in the caravan, claiming that they will receive humanitarian visas or shelter to enter the United States.
We'll make an exhaustive investigation of who are the people responsible for creating, directing, organizing and participating in the organization of these kind of caravans and this kind of migration.
Former President Lula da Silva has decided to try his luck with Brazil's Supreme Federal Court again. Lawyers of the former president and PT leader have filed a new habeas corpus appeal against what they believe to be his unlawful prison sentence. They did it after Bolsonaro named Judge Sergio Moro his new Minister of Justice and Public Security. Moro has been in charge of the car wash corruption investigation. The Peruvian Supreme Court is set to decide on the extradition of former judge Cesar Inostroza from Spain. Inostroza was arrested in Madrid after fleeing Peru, accused of leading a criminal organization that involved judges, lawyers, and businessmen. If approved, the extradition request will be sent to the executive power. The former judge is also facing 36 months in preventive detention. In Chile, a forum is discussing the rise of the right wing in Latin America. The debate has been focused on the potential consequences for the region if an ultra-right wing model spreads. It aims at exploring the role of progressive forces against the rise of conservative policies and the risk of losing sovereignty against the U.S. model.
We have not managed to convince that people's lives are improved by government policies. Some people think that they have worked hard or God helped them, disqualifying the idea that it was social policies that had changed the people's lives. That's the important thing, to overcome the alignment of popular consciousness.
The president of Argentina's Fuel Suppliers Federation says the significant drop in the fuel consumption rate is cause for concern. Gabriel Mornorini says with the rate now at 8%, 20% of the country's gas stations would likely face closure. Meanwhile, fuel suppliers have concern that half of fuel purchases are paid for with checking accounts. He says this harms profitability. Biofuel prices are expected to increase even more. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Cameroonian President-elect Paul Biya has been sworn in for his 7th term. Biya won the presidential election in October with 71% of the vote, although voters denounced alleged irregularities. His inauguration was held in the capital Yaoundé under strong security. The 85-year-old has been in power for 36 years, becoming one of Africa's longest-standing leaders. Gambia has signed a new bilateral agreement with France. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian is on an official visit to the country, where he met President Adama Barrow and Foreign Minister Mamadou Tangara. This agreement will work through the French Development Agency. A new French embassy has also been inaugurated in capital Banjul.
And I would like to seize this opportunity to sincerely thank France for the support. For those of you who are not aware of it, during the very difficult days at the UN, one of the first ambassadors who came to me and told me that, Mamadou, be rest assured that France will be by your side, was the French permanent representative.
Turkey's foreign minister says the man who flew to Turkey to kill Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi must have acted on orders. However, he insisted that the directions had not come from the Saudi prince Mohammed bin Salman. In a press conference in Tokyo, the minister also said that Saudi Arabia has the responsibility to tell its people what happened with Khashoggi's body. The Saudi journalist was killed in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul early in October. And now let's take a look at what else is happening around the world.
More than 200 mass graves containing up to 12,000 victims have been found so far in Iraq, according to the United Nations. They were found in regions controlled by the Islamic State group between 2014 and 2017. In August, UN investigators began collecting evidence for trials against IS militants in Iraqi courts and said these mass graves could contain critical forensic evidence. Hundreds of activists at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva and also in Istanbul have protested against China, demanding that it closes down detention camps that are said to hold 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslims. China has denied these camps are for political education, but referred to them as vocational training centers to boost economic growth and social mobility in the region.
Today, and we can say 99% Uyghur who live in exile have lost contact with family members. We have not access to, we haven't get any information from the family members.
Spanish authorities said at least 17 migrants have died over the last 24 hours while attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea from North Africa to Spain. Meanwhile, rescue operations have saved more than 100 migrants from makeshift rafts from the same area. The UN said more than 47,000 people made the dangerous journey to Spain from January to the end of October. Almost 600 deaths have been reported.
Different restoration projects are taking place in Egypt's capital, Cairo, in a bid to save its cultural heritage and history. The Islamic Quarter is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that boasts some 600 listed monuments. But decades of dilapidation, attacks, and pollution have caused the site to severely deteriorate. Now, through a series of projects, the site will be restored to its former splendor. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat, channel 461 in South Africa and channel 531 in Nigeria. Also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.